Chapter 1. The Celebration of Unity. The Grand Hall of Zephyra Prime gleamed under thousands of bioluminescent lights, suspended like stars across its domed ceiling. It was a historic evening, marking 50 years of interplanetary peace between Earth and the Galician Confederation. Empress Zelaria of the Verdari Empire stood at the head of the hall, her regal posture cloaked in amethyst and gold. Her emerald green skin shimmered subtly, but her eyes, sharp, ancient, and tired, swept the room with a quiet loneliness she hid well. Beside her, holding her hand, stood her daughter, Princess Arinya, small, fragile, and blue-skinned. The girl had the unmistakable features of her late Verdari father, but inherited a genetic mutation that left her right leg withered and eventually replaced by an artificial limb. Though she had the heart of a comet, she never danced, never ran. She stood at her mother's side like a statue carved from starlight and silence. Zelaria noticed the guests smiling and mingling, diplomats and dignitaries from a dozen worlds exchanging laughter and wine, but her gaze often dropped to her daughter. Arinya's eyes sparkled whenever the music began, and her small fingers tapped unconsciously in rhythm. But she never moved from her place, and that broke the Empress's heart. Chapter 2. The Waiter. Across the hall, Ethan Wells adjusted the cuffs of his white tuxedo and balanced a tray of glowing drinks with steady hands. A human waiter among alien royalty. It wasn't what he imagined he'd be doing 5 years after culinary school, but the paycheck was decent, and the galaxy offered more than Earth's struggling economy. He'd learned to maneuver among towering Zarkans and feathery Mitrali without spilling a drop, but this evening was different. The Empress herself was in attendance. Protocol was strict. There were to be no direct interactions unless initiated by the Verdari elite. But as he weaved past a column of aquatic diplomats in spherical hydration suits, his eyes caught the little blue girl standing near the throne. She couldn't have been older than 7 Earth years. She didn't speak, didn't move, just stared at the dancers as if watching a dream she didn't dare claim. Something in that gaze stopped him. Chapter 3. The Spark. Later, while clearing used glasses near the central hall, Ethan noticed the music had shifted to a slow, charming waltz. The floor opened. Pairs of dignitaries swirled. Even few Earth officials joined in. Then, as if carried by instinct, Ethan walked toward the throne. Not thinking, not calculating, just moved. He reached Arinya and dropped to one knee. "May I have this dance, princess?" he asked softly. Gasps rippled around the hall. Silence fell like a curtain. Zelaria's eyes narrowed, hand twitching toward her guard. But then Arinya smiled. It was the first time anyone had seen it. She looked to her mother. The Empress didn't nod. She didn't need to. Something ancient in her expression, an ache that softened, gave Arinya all the permission she needed. She took Ethan's hand. Chapter 4. A room transformed. The girl's prosthetic foot clinked gently against the polished obsidian floor as Ethan led her to the center of the ballroom. He bent low, keeping the rhythm gentle. No twirls, just a sway, a shuffle, a gliding miracle. And then Arinya moved, at first cautiously, as if the floor might betray her, then more confidently, laughing. Her laughter rang like bells forged from hope and nebula dust. The crowd was silent, entranced. The Empress stood frozen, her throat tight. Tears, rare and sacred to Verdari biology, brimmed in her eyes. She hadn't seen her daughter this alive since the accident, since her father's death, since she herself began drowning in the isolation of royal duty. And now, this human, this waiter, he was giving her daughter what the most advanced medics and counselors could not. Freedom, joy. Ethan didn't notice the crowd, not the stairs, not even the royal guards inching closer in caution. He only saw Arinya, her wide smile, her arms outstretched, her eyes closing to savor the moment. They danced to the end of the waltz, and when the music faded, the hall erupted in applause. Chapter 5. The Aftermath. Empress Zalaria stepped forward. The guards tensed. Ethan straightened, unsure what he'd just done. His heart pounded, but Zalaria did not call for his arrest. She approached slowly, eyes shimmering. Then, to everyone's astonishment, she bowed her head. "Mr. Wells," she said, her voice regal but trembling with emotion, "you have honored my bloodline more than all the lords of this hall combined." "I only wanted her to smile," Ethan replied, voice dry. "And she has, for the first time in years." Arinya clutched his arm protectively. "Can Ethan visit again, Mama?" The Empress smiled down at her daughter, then at Ethan. "He may. In fact, I insist." Chapter 6. Days that followed. Ethan was promoted, of course, not as a waiter, but as a royal guest and cultural liaison. It was a title crafted for diplomacy, but secretly meant only one thing. Arinya needed him, and Zalaria wanted him close. Each day after his shift, Ethan would visit the royal gardens. There, Arinya would wait with her sketch pad, her prosthetic upgraded by Verdari engineers to support movement. They danced often now, sometimes in public, sometimes in secret, and Empress Zalaria would watch, at first from afar, then from a seat closer, then with a flute of nectar in hand, occasionally laughing at Ethan's awkward dance moves. She hadn't laughed in decades. One evening, Arinya fell asleep under the tree with her head in Ethan's lap. Zalaria approached. "She adores you," she said. "I adore her too," Ethan replied honestly. "And I," Zalaria hesitated, then sat beside him on the stone bench. "I never believed a human could show me the stars in a way I had not seen before." Their eyes met. Something shifted. Not politics, not alliance. Something more delicate, human, universal. Chapter 7. A Heart Reborn. Months passed. Rumors bloomed across the galaxy that the Empress of the Verdari Empire was seen smiling too often, that the princess danced daily in the gardens, that a human man walked beside them both. But in Zephyr Prime, truth bloomed brighter than rumor. Ethan became more than liaison. He became family. Zalaria, once encased in centuries of grief and protocol, rediscovered softness. Arinya blossomed under their care, her limb becoming a symbol not of weakness, but of strength earned through joy. The grand hall that once echoed with politics and power now rang with music and the patter of a child's laughter. And one evening, under that same domed ceiling filled with artificial stars, Ethan asked Zalaria for permission. Not as a subject, not as a guest, but as a man who has come to love you both. She said yes. Chapter 8. The dance repeated. Years later, at the next Unity Gala, the same music played. But this time, Princess Arinya danced confidently at the center, her balance perfect, her laughter louder than before. And beside the Empress stood her husband, a man who once carried a tray of drinks, now carrying the weight of a galaxy's most powerful heart. When asked by a young diplomat how it all happened, Zalaria answered simply, "A human dared to dance with my daughter when no one else would."